Welcome back to Code to Capital, where we're discussing all things tech, entrepreneurship, scaling, and growth. Today's episode is a really fun one because I sat down with Carlos Uribe, who's the product lead at Radar, where he's building AI powered fintech tools that take care of all of the unseen but critical parts of business, from back office operations to fraud detection and AI automation. We're diving into how companies are starting to leverage AI automation in real workflows, and more specifically, why the secret to automation isn't actually automating everything, but knowing where to look and automating those high leverage points, which Carlos will tell you all about, as well as how these systems are actually interacting with real people in the workforce. It's a conversation about what AI automation really looks like inside business today.
I'm currently product lead at Radar. We are working on three different products at the moment. All of them are financial technology, especially for the uh, back office operations of the different companies. And the current vision and strategy is really about making an impact in the areas and processes that are not usually in the spotlight in the market right now. uh, Mostly because a lot of value can be found, like I said, in the back office and things that happen, things that are unseen by the clients, especially when it's something that it's very massive, like the insurance industry. There's still a lot that we can do in operations, finances, and things like that. So we're really focusing on that and trying to build products that are powered by traditional technology as well as AI in a way that really makes sense and will let us add value to a more specific niche, if that makes sense.
Could you give a few examples of what kinds of big things could really benefit from this type of automation?
Yes, absolutely. First, you have all the processes that right now require some type of human in the loop. This concept is very popular right now, and there's a good reason for that. Traditional automation typically only works when things are very standard and have little variance. So when you need to, for example, check documents that are stored as images or browse through data that's not necessarily doesn't really have the same structure every time. Traditionally, you needed humans for that. People needed to really have some type of expertise and training, and also adapt yearly or monthly to the different circumstances that arise. So one very good example that I think is gonna be very big soon has a lot to do with auditing and looking for frauds and anomalies in data. Usually, when you want to find those things, you need to either define metrics or KPIs and things like that. You need to set up formulas or models. There's a lot of machine learning that you can do too. But it always starts with a defined mathematical concept that you're trying to evaluate or something that you need to find. And that, first of all, it takes a lot of time to set up. But even if you do, it's a little bit static after it's been set up once. However, what AI allows us to do now is to change those hypotheses and look for different things every time. Maybe you can create a feedback loop where the humans are only changing or giving additional context to this software, because ultimately everything AI is still software, right? If you create a feedback loop, and people in that area can simply take care of like giving that extra reasoning like ingredient to the software. It can do a lot without having to go through extensive training or having people to manually find things in a very big data set. That's a
Mhm.
really big thing that we're trying to experiment with right now.
So when I think of AI automation, as many people do, there's like a lot of buzz around AI agents and capabilities they have to automate different tasks and workflows and stuff. But I know that there's like orders of magnitude of difference in the effectiveness of these depending on obviously the input data you have and your ability to manipulate that data, and also like generally the expertise of the people implementing these systems. So I'm curious your perspective on what the difference might be if you just find someone who's promising you to just build an AI agent, or you try to build it yourself versus working with a company like yours. Maybe there's things people are overlooking in what feels like a black box of a concept to some.
Yes, definitely. So the way I see it is that we can make an analogy with how it worked with both traditional software and the internet, for example, back in the 90s or 2000s. Um, Everyone had access to coding, to websites, and things like that. So the big difference between technology simply existing and you trying to experiment with it and building good applications and solving real problems really comes down to how good you are at using that tool. And a lot of it has to do with good practices, like best practices for creating AI agents. That really comes with experience more than anything else, because the tools are there, but you need some type of innovation mindset and also a lot of experience to make it effective. There's this one MIT paper that came out recently that really studied like what's been happening with people creating all these pilots and proofs of concepts using AI, and they had some really interesting findings about that. Among the ocean of prototypes and stuff that companies have been doing, what's been most successful so far has to do with processes that are more that have a kind of a small scope, if you know what I mean, at least with what's AI about it. So you have this, let's say you have an entire process that has 100 steps or whatever. Maybe most of the value comes from using AI to automate a very small portion of that, like something in the middle that's only 5 steps, but that really goes a long way. So if you know how to identify that, what's what AI is good for, what AI is not so good for, and how to scale something starting from a small scope all the way to the entire process. The mistake that all these people have been doing for some time right now, or at least in my opinion, is that they try to automate the entire thing or replace an entire team or area or whatever with AI agents in one step, one project. I think that's having the knowledge and the wisdom to not do that and find the critical points where you can add a lot of value using a little bit of AI and supported by traditional software is what really makes the difference. So any company that's doing that right now, either in a more consultative way, like we will find the use case and create the AI agent for you, or the way that we are doing it, which is we're finding a specific problem or need and trying to create a good AI agent that can be replicated for our contexts. Um, that's what the company in-house probably won't have the time to, or it's not worth it to go through the whole learning process to get that expertise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of focused, like it's better to focus on the 20% of that workflow that has the biggest impact from AI rather than trying to do the entire thing and risking a lot of time wasted in the 80% of it that just doesn't necessarily need to be automated, or it's too complicated and can cause other errors down the line. So I
Exactly.
guess the discernment of knowing what is the highest leverage points. And then I guess limiting the scope per agent, like you mentioned, giving them a more narrow scope, and then maybe letting them interact with each other in that process, but not creating one big like agent that comprises all the scopes, but rather
Uh-huh.
multiple small ones.
And you can model it big if you want. Like it's not like you can't really envision the entire thing being run by AI, but you should start narrow. And a lot of these prototypes, like I was talking about, they try to be like this entire co-pilot thing where the AI agent takes care of everything from start to finish, and it kind of works. But when you find one big flaw in it, then the whole project collapses and it suddenly doesn't work. You can push it to production You can't start using it for the actual business if it has any non-working part in it. So make sure you just, yeah, yeah. So make sure you do something maybe a little narrow in scope, but that works really well and adds a lot of value, and then you can scale that up.
Mm. What would you say are the most like alarm bell type of things to look for when looking for automation opportunities? So say I'm a business owner and I'm interested in implementing AI into my business. What are the specific maybe categories or definitions of work that you would look at in a process and immediately recognize that's a good leverage point for AI versus this is not a good fit? Can you have any specific examples or things that you specifically look for?
Yes, yes, definitely. There are a few things that appear all the time. First, you have anything that has a variable or like not a consistent step by step to it. If you need to sometimes skip a step or do something twice because you're interacting with a user, with a human user, and let me give you an example. You need to receive three different documents and validate them. You need to check for certain things, and maybe you're using the AI agent to interpret the images or the PDFs or whatever, then structure that information, and store it somewhere else. Something like that. A very simple flow. If you have a natural language interface, which could be talking to the agent via email or some other chat, whatever, uh, maybe the person's going to send um, instead of the three required documents, they're going to send one of them twice and then the other document. So you're missing one and there's one extra. Uh, if that could potentially break a traditional automation, especially if you're doing a process where um, regular software would take the three files and then send them for revision. And only when the revisor sees the actual documents, they're going to figure out that it wasn't complete. There was one duplicate, and you have to go back to the original submitter. The AI can really take care of that immediately because it's checking the document real time and it's doing it for a very big volume of documents. So if you need something that could require extra steps, that's usually a place where you can implement artificial intelligence, especially when checking documents that are not structured like a CSV or a spreadsheet that has defined fields and everything. But if you're looking at a PDF document, something written by hand, in our cases like that, AI can get rid of the need for a human to look at that visually. That's one area. The other area that's very strong, in my opinion, has to do with a natural language itself. There are a lot of things. Okay, so we all know, or most people know by now, that the biggest strength AI models have right now is generating language and understanding and interpreting language. So it's all about syntax, ultimately. So if you have any process that involves any type of natural language, you can use AI for that, and it can add a lot of value. Uh, then you so I've talked about reading stuff. I've talked about the natural language and syntax and everything that you can do with syntax. For example, generating hypotheses, trying to get the LLM to reason about things, because uh, ultimately the LLM is just predicting words, but it's predicting it based on basically all human knowledge that's available on the internet. So that's really good for randomly generating possible courses of action and then testing them. So if you need to circle back and check whether that was so it's more heuristic instead of like algorithmic. That's a big difference. You can't really check everything in some cases. Let's say your fraud detection is a big example of this. You can't really check everything. If you could, you would. That's not the point. So because you can't really check everything because it's too expensive, it would take forever, or an infinitely big team or something like that, you can maybe get the LLM given some context to generate hypothesis on what to check, and then it tries it, see if it finds something, and then you try something else the other day, the next day, and the next day. So the, all these things that I've talked about, you can then start mixing them together, and The skill that comes with experience is knowing which of these tools to use for each process or problem that the company is facing. And you need to get an intuition for that. It's really very uh, same with software. Designing traditional software, we all have code, we all have websites, we all have internet. What do you do with it? That's the main point. So you generate an intuition. Nowadays, anyone can intuitively think like, okay, I need a form for this, or I need like this type of interface for this. I need like a record function. I need like an options button or something like that. We all have interacted with traditional software so much that we can intuitively recall what could be useful for every situation. So we're trying to generate the same type of intuition and wisdom, if you know, with these components that AI is good for. Reading, variance, skipping or adding steps to a process, generating heuristic approaches for processes and problems.
That's so interesting. Okay, so yeah, anything to do with unstructured data where you typically need some sort of analysis, which would otherwise be very difficult. Anything where like where you can narrow down a problem far more easily by using reasoning and loop it so you don't have to keep prompting it so it continues to do that on its own. And then I suppose there's tons of other cases here, but yeah, like you mentioned, it's a matter of knowing what's the highest ROI for each thing.
Yeah, and like choosing the right part of the process or the right processes, generating an intuition for which of these tools is best for each case. And another way I like to think about it is if you can teach this easily to a person, but it's really hard to code. If you have a process that you can hire someone that's not very skilled and you think they can pull it off, but coding it would be a nightmare, that's a very good like indicator that it might be good for AI.
Okay, that's a really good, yeah, that's a really good way to think about it. So, okay, now I'm curious because there's tons of like agents and employees and ads for many different kinds out there. And one thing that's always like a little skeptical for me when I see ads is, okay, how does it actually work? Like there's a demo and then there's real life. Especially with fintech, it's a more heavy industry in terms of like you need things to work well and there's high risks involved with error. So how do you show customers that your AI solutions aren't just a flashy demo and that they're actually built for critical financial operations and real use cases?
Uh-huh. Well, that's very much a challenge right now. We don't have an AI agent culture yet in organizations. Um, that's basically the question that every client will ask you, or every stakeholder will ask you when implementing a project like this. And what we've been telling people so far is that when you create a demo, you're always worried that it won't scale well or that it's going to have vulnerabilities and things like that. So you need to compromise a bit. You need to
Uh-huh.
compromise in scope, like I stated before, but there's also a compromise in functionality, even within that narrow scope. For example, uh, you can make a demo where the agent does the entire thing isolated. It works from start to finish in a very small part of the process, and it works fine, and that's the demo. But then someone's gonna be worried that it's either gonna be unsafe, break at larger scale or anything. So what you do is you incorporate, you take some of the AI out of the equation, or you incorporate this famous figure of the human in the loop. Someone to oversee what's going on, and you create a very strong system of two things that are required for almost every AA agent that manages anything that's sensible in any way, which is guardrails. You need to be constantly be worried about how to prevent the LLMs from being corrupted, abused by the end users, or simply doing something unwanted. And the evaluators, the evaluation of the results is also very important. You need part of the knowledge, and being an expert in AI comes with knowing how to evaluate the results of what's coming out, because it's ultimately stochastic. It's probabilistic. It's not deterministic. So you won't have the same result every time. You can't trust it like you trust a script, an algorithm. So you need to have at least one very strong layer of evaluating that result before rolling it out for whatever it is. If you're having your AI agent communicating with a client or something, you need to check, and you can use deterministic software for that too. The point is, you need to have this um, you need to understand this architecture framework where you always have guardrails, you always have evaluators, and you can always implement humans, and add this human in the loop just to gain trust and start. You need to start somewhere. Start narrow, start maybe not fully automated, but show that it adds value, and then you can let go little by little.
When you're rolling out these solutions and non-technical people are involved, maybe they're the human in the loop, how do you ensure adoption and not having like, have you seen any problems with, rolling this out to non-technical teams, or what's the design thinking you have to consider when dealing with that situation?
Yeah, that happens a lot, and I think there's no silver bullet for this. But what's worked for us so far is trying to disrupt their current experience as little as possible. So, if the let's say the optimal solution would be to have something not being checked at all. The agent does it by itself. It grabs one piece of information, processes it, and then sends it to someone else or some other area. If the person that was involved in that process originally loses loses trace of that process because they're not involved anymore, for example, you can add notifications so that they know that the agent is doing all this stuff. That's one way to promote adoption. So they used to check every document, for example, and do it manually. Now they don't check it, but they get a notification that it was approved and then sent to whoever. It's not optimal because this person is still going to be wasting time viewing this notification that doesn't actually add much value because the process is automatic now. But they're gonna have the all the trace of what's been done. They can, if they want to double check something just to feel good, they can do it. Um, that's one way to do it. So they are still checking one mail for every issuing, but they're not checking documents. So it's like compromising between the current experience and the future experience. It's like you have to do it gradually, if that
I
makes sense.
see. It's kind of like typical UX design principle. Like you're not gonna have a saved document and then it just there's no confirmation that it was saved. It just completely like closes the window and you're like, did it save? Like I don't know. Like there has to be some feedback that an action was done for them to trust that it's working. And I guess over time they'll get accustomed to it and not even bother looking because they've built that trust. I
Exactly,
see. Okay, cool.
pretty much.
How do you guys position yourselves to build trust with potential customers and um, communicate the actual value you're providing when there's so much noise happening in the AI automation and agency space?
That has changed over time. We've tried a few things. Currently, we're trying to aim for problems that are like within a specific area of the companies, and instead of trying to solve problems for anyone that this works for. So even though our agent, most recent agent, is very good at analyzing data, we won't market it to anyone that has data that needs to be analyzed. So what we do instead is that we focus on the CFO suite, for example. So you have anyone that's in finance, that's the type of data that we want to tackle. And the advantage of that is that you can always speak their language. Like you get some knowledge about the concepts that they use every day, the problems that they face every day, and you can show them that you know about their business and not only about AI. So that I think that's a key insight. If you show them that you know about their business, to someone, especially someone that's not technical, that's the one thing they can validate. Oh, so you're speaking my language. So probably when you implement this, because I know you know a lot of AI, whatever, but when you try to do something with my accounting using I really need to make sure that you know about accounting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I guess there's no way for them to really validate the breadth of your expertise, but if you can communicate back to them the problem that they're having, then they'll be like, "Yeah, this guy gets it," and they'll trust you. Okay.
Exactly. And the easiest way to get there is to speak with the same type of people every time. So that's why we're focusing a lot of finances right now, even though our agent could very well work for something else.
Yeah, yeah. I guess start narrow and, like, deep and narrow, and then eventually you can expand.
That
Okay.
applies to the marketing too, and the
And automation. Yeah. Cool. What's a lesson you've learned in building products and working at Radar that was kind of unexpected, but looking back was like a big thing that maybe changed how you work or how you perceive the business process? I don't know. Anything you could impart that would be unexpected knowledge to someone who's a few steps behind.
uh-huh. So the biggest thing I can think of right now is that when you're working with the newest technology, if I can call it that, think of it like trying to sell Microsoft Excel back in the 90s. The product can be extremely good. It can be very safe, practical, whatever. Uh, but if people don't just don't know to care about it, they won't buy it, you know? So instead of just trying to create a great product or something that adds a lot of value, you also need to think a lot about how to compromise with what people are willing to test out right now. So you might have a very good solution for something, but if it doesn't make any sense to them, maybe it's not worth to spend too many resources on that. So what I started doing is trying to remember the basics a lot. One very important fundamental of product design that I've been really trying to keep in mind recently is to never start from the solution. Never start at the technology. Always start at the pain point or the need, right? And after years of working in product, you tend to forget that. Sure, you're always doing product research and trying to find what people are trying to do. But when you have pressure of we need to sell this because it's the hottest thing, we need to sell AI, whatever. Okay, but let me first become really good at first understanding myself, what this is good at and why it's good and everything. And then I need to learn how to communicate with the people that need it and do good product research that way. And you're never going to get valuable insight for someone that doesn't understand what this can do at all. So you need to first get good at explaining uh, what's explainable right now about the technology to this. And if you do that, you're going to get some valuable insight. So it's really easy to get lost in the let's do AI for the sake of doing AI. And so let's go back to the basics and see how we can um, communicate well with the users.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I had the same experience working with like different company as well, and the vision is so big, but then when you try to communicate that big vision, people get lost. They're like, "How is that even possible?" They doubt the feasibility, and then all these other questions come up. But then, yeah, when you bring it back down to earth and you start from the other end, you can still keep I think you can work from both ends. Like, you can have the vision, but then you have to give people what they say they want before you can give them what you know they need. Otherwise, they're never gonna listen.
Exactly. And what ends up happening a lot of times is that you give them what they kind of think they need right now and something that makes them happy. And then as they use it, they learn more about what it could potentially do and do, and they instinctively understand and intuitively understand what else it could do, and they come back to you and ask you, you know what, Carlos, could this AI agent thing do this? I say,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Let's work on that now. And we increase
Yeah.
scope only then when they click with it, if that makes sense.
I think that's really the key right now with AI in general. It's you can't sell like a big dream. You have to give the very technical like solution first and then let them come to the conclusion. So, where do you see radar going in the next year, 12 months or so, maybe even 5 years? Like what's the big vision you guys have?
What we want right now, the main vision is to give products that are useful with different levels of support and different levels of consulting, if you will. So something that can be used almost plug and play, and that we can give like a toolbox that they can use to uh, maybe structure their own solutions and then asking us to take care of the details, all the way to let's do something completely like custom made for you and very specific. Because right now, finding a very consistent value proposition um, is very hard because of the communication thing I told you about. Even if we found a very good pitch, a very good product, very specific that really helps everyone, but we can't sell it, then it doesn't work. So we'll really need to align the marketing and communicational part of it with the product design. So the way we're reconciling those two is by creating something that's not yet it's it's as specific as it can be today, and we need to grow that. We need to become more specific as people understand this better and better. So for the time being, we have these modules, these AI modules that our clients can work with, and then we build an AI worker that takes care of the process. That's the way we're communicating it right now. And maybe in the future, when I talk about an AA agent, people will know so much about it that they're gonna tell me themselves what they want to work on and see immediately if there's fit between our product and their needs. But right now, we need to start with like a toolbox that we use with some consulting to get the objective met.
What's the thing that's the big problem that you're chewing on right now? The challenge you guys are focused on?
I think it's the evaluations part. We do have a lot of experience doing it, but we've found that people don't trust it that much. So we're really tackling the experience of it right now. So to give a specific example, we do have evaluations for a specific report that our AA agent, our most recent AA agent, is generating for a specific client. Um, but they're still double checking some of the insights of the report with the actual data. And we're trying to figure out what else can we add within the automation to help them let go of that secondary revision. So it's really about the experience and the trust right now. Maybe there's a different way to represent what the evaluator is doing, like maybe a specific report on the evaluations, deviations, averages, or something like that, that can help them trust the process a little more. But the results are good. So when you have good results, now you need to find a way to like help make the product itself, the agent itself, communicate better to the end user.
What if end users communicated on their part is the concern? Is there any information on what specifically people don't trust? I'm just curious, like what the biggest resistance is around it.
It's really most frequently about numbers. If because if you're trying to find outliers, when you present the outlier to the person, it's gonna look weird because it's an outlier. So you usually this is completely made up, but if you usually sell 10 units of something per person, and you have a record that says that one person bought 200, and the agent detects that and tells you about it, then they go like, No way. Let me check that. So they go to the original data to validate whether the agent was hallucinating or not. And it's never wrong. It's always an actual outlier that you want to report, but they still don't trust it because by nature it's weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm. That's interesting. Huh. Yeah, and then I guess it creates this, like, seed of doubt even though the agent ends up being right every time they see it, they're like, "It could be this time, it could be this time."
Exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
we're fighting that right now.
Okay.
How can we actually never have to check that result? And more than that, because we don't, we check it. The way we check it is apparently works. So um, how can we make the users trust that result and
Mhm.
not look at it? Uh, So they will eventually, but how can we make it faster? That's really a question.
Yeah, I suppose if I was dealing with some sort of AI system in my workflow, um, and it told me specifically that it found outlier and it kind of gave me some reasoning, or if I saw that it wasn't just giving it to me as a normal result and it understood that it was an outlier, maybe that would create a bit more confidence because it doesn't feel like it's just giving me data to that looks weird. But I don't know. I have no idea. Sounds like a big
Yeah,
challenge.
I mean, technically, in this case that I told you about, it is reported as an outlier. Like these are the weird ones. Like do something about them, and then you check it before doing it. So mm, how can we make that a little bit? I think it right now we haven't
Could you
tested.
create a shortcut to checking it?
That's what I was gonna tell you. Right now, our current bet is to add more interfaces, something that's not connected to the agent, but to the original data that you can create shortcuts and stuff like that. That could be a way to do it.
Like
The con-
how if you do the ChatGPT, like, research function, it'll cite its sources because otherwise you'd be like, "I don't know if I can trust all these statistics you're giving me," but it'll link if you use, like, the whatever research mode, it'll link specifically where it got it from, and you still go to check, but you're like, "Okay." You check enough times the sources, you're like, "Okay, this is a pattern that it's consistently citing the correct spot," so maybe yeah, maybe that helps. Interesting.
uh-huh. That's probably the next thing that we're gonna test for this specific client that I told you about.
Is there any other big exciting thing that you see emerging in AI or anything that you're kind of excited about coming up?
I'm very excited about people using AA agents internally and people getting used to incorporating them in their personal workflows. That's what I'm
Mm.
excited about. Um, so
Do you
same as
have any?
yeah,
What's
yeah,
your
I have
favorite?
a couple. Uh, the one that I like the most is one that actually takes away some very tedious task that I was doing, which was we have this configuration block of text that we need to set up for a specific product that has nothing to do with AI. It's a very different software that we use as a like a complement, like part of bigger solutions. And it doesn't really have an interface to do it quickly, so you need to like type everything down. So what this agent does is that if I explain it in natural language, the way I understood it from a meeting or whatever, then it creates the entire text because it knows how it's structured. It knows its structure very well. So you give it context, you give it examples, you teach it what every field does. You do that once, you create an agent that hooks up to your CRM, whatever, from your notes from your meetings and everything. Right now I'm doing that with transcripts from meetings. So I just talk it over with somebody, and then it has the configuration ready afterwards.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So same with like I said, Excel, internet web pages, and everything. People are going to start creating their own sooner or later. I believe. I'm very excited about that in the future.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been really fun. I feel like I learned a lot of stuff and I'm excited to like see things progress and grow. And yeah, thanks for coming on today. It was a blast.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad I could talk about all this stuff with you. You were very um, insightful with it too, so it was a very nice conversation.